We'll take you through our underground cellars. We go a bit of the more newer section first, and then we go to the underground cellars, which were built, we think, in about the early 1870s. Right, just follow me. We're now approaching the more cellar area here. Barrels and a lot of old equipment we have. Over on our left, we have, once again, old equipment, things like a couple of old corking machines. This is my favourite one, because that one there you can sit down on when you're operating. We made life a lot easier than the stand-up ones. This old door here is quite interesting. You'll see record floods, 1891, 1909. We had floods here in 45 and again in 2011. I'll put them on there one day when I get round to it. Little clipping here, help our heroes. We wanted socks and bootlaces from the First World War. Henry Best has obviously put his initials up there. Snow, Great Western, 1981. There's all sorts of things here. This here's an old milepost, which is on the highway. I used to walk, when I used to go to school, I used to walk across to the highway, across here, and there's Ararat 12 miles, Stawell 6 miles. So they're all, these are all just things picked up and collected over the years. A small little hand crusher there. And now we're into the old cellar here. A lot of these barrels here were used for fortified wines. Fortifieds were a very big part of all wineries in Australia up until the 60s, when table wine moved out all the fortified wines and replaced with table wine. This cellar, to me, is a bit of a mystery. Let's go down a little bit further. I've never quite understood the building of this cellar, and the reason I say that is because as a child I can remember this was a cellar with a timber across the top, and it all collapsed in, and I used to be able to climb down here, and my mother would get very angry at me. Don't go down there because it'll fall on your head and you'll be killed, da, 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 da. We rebuilt this cellar in, I'd say, the middle 1940s. We keep this for mainly old wines, and we put anything you want to keep for 10 to 20 years, come down here. We've also got a rack there for other people's wines, which I enjoy tremendously, because you don't want to get a cellar pallet. That's the last thing you want to do. So, right, let's come through here. This is our main cellar here. Once again, this is all built, as far as we know, in the early 1870s. These barrels down here, if you look around, you can't get them in and you can't get them out. Obviously, they were either put down here and then the next floor was put on, but I suspect they were built down here. In the early days, when they brought barrels out from Europe, what they would have done, they would have broken them up, bundled them up into smaller containers, shipped them out, and then they'd come up here in bundles, and then they'd be put together up here. And when you remember, the best were cabinet makers, 1860s, 70s, 80s, about that period, barrels were very, very common. They didn't have stainless steel tanks, they didn't have oil drums, they didn't have metal. Everything had to be handled in wooden containers. So consequently, making barrels would have been an everyday job. Not necessarily barrels like these, but making wooden containers to hold water or anything like that would have been very much part of any carpenter's life. My opinion is they would have imported the barrels, broken up, and then brought them down here and built them in place.